Hey everyone, and welcome back to the AI Insight podcast. I'm your host, Mazor, Kario, product design and AI expert and the creator of the online leaders program, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI. And today we're exploring the fascinating and crucial intersection of law and artificial intelligence. Joining us is Hofit Wasserman-Rozen, a leading expert in AI law and policy, and a researcher fellow in Shamgar Center, Tel Aviv University Faculty of Law, and a PhD candidate in law and artificial intelligence. Hofit brings a unique perspective to the conversation, combining her legal expertise with her deep understanding of AI technology. We'll be discussing the challenges of AI regulation and the need for explainable AI, and how to build trust in a world of increasingly powered by artificial intelligence. Hi, Hofit.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. And from our previous conversation, I know we have lots to talk about, and it's fun to do it together. So let's start.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So what are some specific dangers of AI that you see and is most concerning?
Wow, that's a great first question to open the discussion. I think a lot of the public debates and discussions about AI risk tends to pivot towards what is known as AI safety. Okay,
Right.
AI is an existential threat, right? AI and ranges from AI will eliminate humanity, we'll all become serfs of AI, and maybe more probable risks such as AI in the wrong human hands might be used for actual, really calamitous repercussions. But when it comes to law and policy, and myself included, I think I'm more oriented towards the second cohort, which is known as AI ethics. And AI ethics looks not at what could be artificial general intelligence and all those, long shot scenarios, and more on when AI is being developed, integrated, and used today and in the foreseeable future, what we can imagine. What are the risks and dangers that it brings with it? After all, AI is being integrated into spaces, to domains, to verticals where people are already there, laws are governing the situation. We're used to human decision making, and when AI replaces or more often assists human decision making, we need to make sure that basic human rights are kept, and that we can, for example, execute the right for due process, right? There are no additional physical harms being caused. If we think about autonomous vehicles, for example, right, it's a good example of that. If we have criminal defendants, that they can ask questions about an algorithm that included them in kind of a list of who's been interrogated or been searched. Even if I send my CV and an algorithm reads it, what is the reason I wasn't brought in for an interview because, A, B, or C? These are all domains which are regulated by laws, and now AI is being integrated into, and it creates a whole new set of challenges and risks that we need to address.
Yeah, and more than that, we're just in the beginning. You mentioned a few places that already integrated AI, but in the foreseeable future would have much more of that, and it will take so many more domains, areas, help more professionals in so many ways. And we need to be aware that it's going to be a very vast change of the way that things are done right now. Even before they make decisions, they help us make decisions, and the information that they bring needs to be balanced and ethical.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Another point to consider, I think, is that AI is not really making a decision unless we let it. It produces a prediction. And a prediction is very, very different from a decision. We can have a whole podcast just about that, but it's important to acknowledge that difference.
Yeah, I'm saying that right now we don't give them the option to do decisions. Let's say even like in law or in enforcement and in HR, an example that you gave, we don't let them pick the person that will work there. You'll tell them, AI will help you decide who's the one that will get the chance to have an interview in the company, right? So, but the information that you get in order to make the decision yourself is crucial.
Yeah. I know that there's kind of an AI hype out there, and it seems that we're moving fast towards a future where AI is going to make all the decisions. I don't think this is the case. It will probably be between two extremes, where some kind of decisions will be strictly human, some kind of decisions will be strictly AI, and AI has a lot of advantages in certain circumstances. But we would want it to make, like quick decisions or, based on a lot of data, etc. And in the middle, the scale, the most of the scale will be AI-assisted human decisions. So that's a challenge by itself.
What are the key challenges in getting lawyers and data scientists to work together on responsible AI?
That's a case of Lost in Translation, if you know the movie from Japan. They're really speaking two different languages. When technologists say, for example, fairness, and when lawyers or law professionals say fairness, they mean totally different things. And the whole way of thinking is so different. I mean, machine learning professionals, developers, they think in zeros and ones.
Right.
Lawyers, policymakers, regulators, and to an extent, society thinks in a whole different, more ambiguous kind of way. Fairness has like 20 different definitions that we can pick from. Okay, so which one do we pick? The law is built on ambiguity as a default. It's a feature, it's not a bug. But when technology people say, okay, tell us what you want, you law and policy, professionals, it's really hard to translate it into zeros and one. And here lies the big challenge, I think, of communicating between these two disciplines.
I think that another thing that comes to my mind is people who are engineers or data scientists. There are specific people that are more into a specific rule-based decision. They want to have this is the decision, then we go on, and maybe even less verbal in the way that they communicate. While lawyers, they just love the fact that we could just talk about things and think about all the implications from all the sides. And it's like very different kind of people that need to do something together in that sense.
Yeah, that's totally right. And the question is, how can you get developers and engineers to speak a little bit of the legal, agenda or way of thought, and for lawyers and law professionals to do the same when it comes to technology. Yeah. And there are methods and methodologies being developed to do that, to achieve that, but it's crucial. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Another thing that comes to my mind, if I'm thinking about a technological company. They do technology, and they have a legal advisor. The legal advisor will always put more restrictions, a more cautious way of seeing things, while the technology and the engineers would want to go forward, right? So there are like two clashing powers within the company, and most people, when they think about the legal advisor, they know it will take more time and probably will get more no's on the way, right? And the fact they're so cautious and thinking about all that's their job. It's not that I'm like not criticizing, but their job is to think about all the risk, what could go wrong, how could people betray you, and think like what's going to be like the scenario nobody thought about. I would think about it, right? While when you want to execute a project or you have like someone who's doing technology, they just want to, to get it like forward and to move it to the clients as fast as possible, right? So what do you think about that?
I can totally relate to that. I've been a practicing lawyer in the past and moving to the more business high-tech section. I totally get what you are saying. I think there's a scale, and the law professionals, legal counsels need to know what is their unique contribution to the organization, but the organization should also acknowledge that this contribution is needed, especially when we move at a light speed towards regulation of AI. We've seen the first step with the AI Act being published, and it will soon, come into force in several steps. We also see in the U.S. A lot of commotion around the federal regulation, as well as in the states, which some of them are really taking, the impression from the EU and moving at the speed of light with legislation. What I recently heard, and I won't diverge the name of the company, but someone who's pretty high up who was saying how they develop a new project or a new feature or service. So first, they think about the idea, then they try it, they test it, they create the solution or the product. And then at the end, just before they release it to the public, they go through legal. And I was like, no, that's such a bad idea. And I'll tell you why. Because, of course, legal counsel should not just overrule everything and be totally risk-averse. That's not, a good position to be. And I think it doesn't work when it comes to technology or organizations. And it might work in some organizations, but not these kind of, innovation-driven ones. But there's an important role from the get-go, from the start, bring the perspective of how can we handle the risks? What are the risks? First, analyze what can be a potential risk, and then think about what are the solutions, what are the tweaks. And in, severe cases, maybe we should reconsider creating the product or the service or the feature. I think that's not, the regular approach. But think of someone who has developed an organization, who's put so much effort, time, and smart people and resource into creating something, and then, you go to legal and they say, that just doesn't work. There's no way, privacy regulation will allow that. And then what do? Just throw it out? I mean, that's not, it doesn't seem very, make sense kind of life cycle of a product or a service.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's connected to what we said before, that sometimes that you want the legal person to be like a stamp in the end. Yeah, we went through legal in the procedure.
Exactly. Next point.
Yeah, but usually, and if he does his work well, he's not. He would ask questions. He would put more guardrails to the process, and it might need more time, more resources, in order to execute well.
I think that what you said about asking the questions is really smart. It's spot on, because you need someone in the room that will ask questions that engineers might not intuitively ask. And it can even boil down to, if I have a vision in my mind of some kind of feature that I want to create, and it's really hard for me to think of someone, misusing it for some other purpose, because I'm so in love with the idea. I cannot think outside the box. And then when you bring someone from outside who has some familiarity of what are potential risks, and the whole discussion that is going on about that, then they can, bring some kind of, as you said, insight and questions, ask the questions. And maybe the answer is there's no problem here, and maybe, wait, we need to think about A, B, and C.
Yeah. You mentioned the AI Act. I think it's a European regulation, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And could you tell us a bit about it? And do you think it's a different type of lawyer that will handle regulations, high level, changing the policies, and somebody who's doing legal for a specific company is always into the details of this specific product and market and all the regulations related to the specific product?
So first, talking about the AI Act, it's been at the end of a long and anguished process, which took many, many years. It's really the flagship of regulation in AI, and the EU has a history of doing that. If we think about the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, has been the flagship that had a Brussels effect, really influencing the whole world when it comes to data processing and data protection. The EU, I think, hopes that the AI Act will do the same. It should have some kind of an important influence. You can feel it in the US as well, which is, we tend to think of the US as in the other side of the scale when it comes to regulation, but there are more vocal voices being heard there about doing something that's maybe more domain for specific regulators other than an overarching legislation like the AI Act. But yeah, it's a really important piece of legislation which will have an impact around the world. There's no doubt about that. To tell you a question about who should be knowledgeable about the AI Act, I think everyone. and by everyone I also mean developers and engineers. I'm sorry, guys, but you should
think
know.
it's like too much to ask, but okay.
No,
We could
just to
dream.
highlight, I totally get it. I mean, there's no need to get into the intricacies, but I also feel that from the surface, I have to say. People are reaching out, engineers, and they're saying, I have a startup, I want to develop a new kind of product or feature. What do I need to know about the AI Act? Where do I fall in the AI Act? And that's amazing to see, really. Of course, the European market is a very important market, and when it comes to the AI Act, even if a user is using the service somewhere in the geography of the EU, then you're hooked in the net. So it doesn't matter where you're located. So it has.
So could you give us like a few top insights from the AI Act? What everybody should know that this is what the regulations talk about.
Well, the AI Act takes on an approach of risk management. So it tries to highlight what are the different risk levels of certain AI systems. Okay, so you have high risk, low risk, and in each of those, say, risk levels, you're complying with different kind of regulations. Okay, so the higher risk, of course, the more regulations is imposed on you. There's a kind of a general transparency requirement that people should be minded of. And there are some AI uses which are excluded, okay, which should not be pursued in the domain of the EU.
Really? What would be things related to fake news or cyber related AI, or what
more
kind
like biometric from a certain perspective, or social monitoring. These are the kinds of a usage which the EU says that's not for us. You're not allowed to practice that in the inside the EU.
Yeah. So as I see it, it's like a type of GDPR for AI. So they're talking about risks and security and privacy and all of that. Or maybe I'm wrong and it's not related to the way that I see GDPR as a reference.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it's an interesting reference because the GDPR proceeded to the AI Act, and it's a good build-up. But I think the difference when it comes to AI systems is that it's hard to know what their potential is, what their prospective uses are, and especially with the coming into the stage of those foundation models, which is also an interesting point about the AI Act, which was close to being completed, and then foundation models came into being, and then they had to rush and put on some kind of patch in a way that addresses the foundation models, because it's really hard to label them when it comes to the level of risk, right? I mean, it depends what the downstream user is using them for, and there are endless usages possible, as we see.
Sure.
So there's something about AI systems being unpredictable that makes the difference. There is some criticism about the AI Act from that perspective, meaning you're trying to regulate technology that is unstable, and we don't know what's going to happen, so it might be redundant in a week. Still, I think there is a lot of value in putting your foot on the ground and saying, this is what we want. We want to maintain basic human rights, and we want you to address the issue of risk and make sure that you're following the regulation. And then, as a regulation, it's vague, as we started our discussion, and that may be a positive factor, actually. We'll wait to see the guidelines they're putting up in AI office, and we'll see how it trickles down, to actual do's and don'ts.
Yeah. One of the things that is very obvious is the amount of data that is needed for AI, and it will always demand from these foundational models, big language models, large language models, to take information that probably was not as specifically out of the end users, either from big like using YouTube and all the videos there, using all the libraries and all the writers there's music, all the people who've done music all over the globe for hundreds of years. So how do they manage to regulate something that is, I would say, they're all using it? So what could they say? It's like maybe too late even to mention it right now.
Yeah, maybe. I always think about the example of Google Books, where they just, went ahead and scanned so many books, and it was just a done deal. And then, there's some kind of legal arrangements following, and I think that is probably what's going to happen in this case as well. I mean, there are a lot of litigation going on. I'm not going to, try to guess how it will end, but I think that possibly there will be some kind of legal arrangements and mitigation and compensation and different partnerships. I think we're trying to see, we're beginning to see that a little bit. Some kind of partnerships between content creators and AI builders, developers, and that's probably where we're headed.
I think that there is this middle organization. You have content creator creating, and then you have the big platforms. It could be Spotify and YouTube and Facebook and social media, of course. And it seems that the end users, the people who really use these platforms, would usually not get anything from the analysis of their data. You could see it in social media right now. You don't need to go to the LLMs in order to see it. That as they say, that we're the product. If we're not paying, so we're the and the implications could be very crucial. And if they have any kind of agreement, it will be with these platforms that have all the images or have all the text and have all the music and it's not going to be for the specific musician who created something. And even you could see it very clearly in Midjourney and image creation. You could create an image based on a specific photographer, for example. And I don't think that this photographer right now, and not even in the future, would get anything from it. And all his life work was automatically scanned. And now you can say, I want any Leibovitz image of me, and that's it. That's all I need to do. And, it's a person who dedicated his life and talent and resources to do something, right? And same goes to any kind of artist and creator.
Yeah, I definitely get your point. As a content creator, it must be something on your mind. I think that you might be surprised, and there will be more value associated with genuine human contact rather than, maybe we'll see. As for making these kind of images based on known artist images, I think that at the end of the day, courts will handle that for sort of that direction. I don't think it will be, just an open field for everyone to grab whatever they want without acknowledging IP rights and copyright. I mean, it's a field in development, but something will happen there. And again, thinking about what you said initially, users, for example, we do gain some utility. If the algorithm, is better in providing us a prediction or recommendation, then there is utility there, of course. If there was no utility, then no one would use it. So it's a gentle balance between, utility and infringing on rights, and we'll see how it ends.
Yeah, but when we get these benefits, we get it from Facebook, for example. We don't get it from the information that was gathered and went outside to someone. By the way, we didn't agree to everything in Facebook, like recording voice, for example, and even further, the usage of this data for third parties using the data that they buy from Facebook or from WhatsApp or whatever. And maybe I'm wrong, but it seems that these powerful organizations, and right now we even have a small, they're not small anymore, but a small startup that could change the world with all this data. And I don't think that somebody would come to OpenAI and say, okay, you know what? Now you're closing your business and you're going home. Bad boy, go home. You did something wrong. Maybe they would need to pay some money from the vast amount of money that they're already at least estimated in. But it seems like it's going to a certain direction. But maybe I don't trust the law and regulations enough.
What is missing from your point of view, which I totally agree with, and I see where you're coming from, is that policymaking and regulation and courts takes time. Sometimes it takes years until something is moving. but it is moving eventually. We need to be patient, which is not something that, maybe some of us
I'm
are.
not a patient person.
Yeah, exactly. So, but still, the law moves slowly. Regulation is always, running after technology. That's not new. And
Right.
but I think what's maybe new in this era is that technology is moving so fast. I mean, we have those immense changes in a matter of years rather than hundreds of years as been in the past. So, regulation and policymakers have a lot to catch up for, and they're doing that, but they're moving in glacier speed, and we'll see, but something will happen eventually. You need to be patient.
Yeah, I hope, like we have Facebook more than 20 years, right? It's like, it seems like it's not young anymore, that's for sure, or any social media. I'm just saying Facebook as a main reference.
Yeah, of course.
And we know that there are some downsides for this technology, and we don't always think about what does that mean and what is like the price that society is paying and we're paying for it. And 20 years, I guess, is enough time for people and regulations and someone who's doing all these like restrictions to do something. And it seems like, I don't know, I didn't see any kind of regulation saying like, what does it mean if you're talking to small kids, if you're influencing their mood, if you're influencing their decisions, and if you're making their life less, happy in a sense.
Yeah,
just one example. I'm just saying one example. You could go further in any other way.
That's actually a good example, because in some states in the U.S. there has been movement towards regulating this exact aspect and how technology interacts with children. And also, when you think about Section 230, which has been the protection of those big platforms for so long, I think there are tectonic movements in how courts are starting to think about this protection. So it takes a long time, but at some point enough is enough, maybe. And so you can be optimistic, and things are slowly changing, I think.
I see. What could individuals and organizations really do in order to promote responsible AI or ethical AI in their own products?
Well, I think that's such an important question. First, it's acknowledging that we all have a say when it comes to responsible AI. And responsible AI should be present in organizations and outside organizations, in society. People should get the gist of it and be aware that humans have rights when it comes to technology. And when AI is being integrated as a decision subject, as a user, I don't have to, just accept being decided on by some kind of an obscure autonomous machine. I think when it comes to organizations, it needs to come from the top. It's important to have leadership that understands the importance of responsible AI being integrated into their organization in every step of the way in the organizational hierarchy. And I think that they can address it from a risk management kind of perspective if they feel better about it. But it's more than that. Of course, there are societal impacts, and we all live in society. But I think that trying also to learn the language of the other side, if you're not technology averse, trying to speak a little bit of the language of technology is important, and vice versa. If you're a developer, an engineer, trying to understand where societal issues are relating to your work when you make decisions, behind the keyboard. There are ethical implications, even if you're not aware of it. So the first step is to be aware of it, educate yourself, ask questions, invite more stakeholders into the discussion, and just go from there.
And I could imagine things related to security and privacy and maybe the data that we're using, but we're not changing data source each day. So maybe once in when we're changing. But in general, is it like something that I need to know daily when I write the code? What is perceived as not in the regulations of privacy? Or is it something that I just need to keep in mind that people are influenced by what I'm doing?
Yeah, I think as a starting point, that's enough. As we spoke in the beginning, keeping some kind of a legal counsel or someone who's, comes from another disciplinary. It doesn't have to be, there are other disciplinaries who are also relevant for that. But just being minded of that, as you say, and think, am I creating some kind of risk to privacy? Am I creating kind of risk for human agency, for human autonomy? Is my system explainable? And if someone asks me, how is this system making this decision? Can I explain it? Do I have the tools for that? Can I create an explanation that can be understood by someone who's not an engineer? These are all questions that need to, percolate in someone's mind as they go along in their daily job.
So if we're talking about explainable, which is a big thing for an AI system, and because AI systems are a black box, we don't know exactly how did they get to this specific, in this time, to this specific answer. So how could it be explainable, especially if I'm using a large language model as a third party?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, no doubt. It has become a more complex challenge as foundation models came to the scene. But it was a challenge before that. As AI systems became more and more complex, and the complexity level is also increasing. It came from engineers and developers who needed to debug the system. So they needed to come up with all kinds of techniques to get what they refer to as an explanation. And I say that in this sort of way because it's very, very different from how law and policy professionals think of explanation. And I would argue that how society understands explanation. I mean, we talk right now, right? It's some kind of explanation. It's reason giving. And there's a lot going on under the hood. The underlying objectives of what I'm saying to you are a lot more than debugging a system. There's also you putting your trust in me that what I'm saying is correct, that my decisions are correct. You're able to maybe challenge my decision, right? That's more like a due process kind of execution. I respect you as a human when I explain to you, right? And also myself in a way, because I'm not just blurting things out into this podcast. I've put a lot of thought and effort before, hopefully. I think that when I also explain and give reasons for my actions and my decisions, it impacts me as a human decision maker, right? I need to come up with a very good decision, making a better quality of decision overall when I explain. And all of that is missing when we think about XAI, explainable AI. And the challenge here is really how to bridge these two gaps, returning again to the multidisciplinary discussion that needs to happen. It must happen in order for engineers to understand what we lawyers are talking about when we say explainability, explainable AI, and how can they deliver on such a product. And if they can't, then we need to put our brains together and think, what can we deliver for some kind of explanation for people to get those underlying objectives that they intuitively expect to get.
Yeah. I think that most people, when they think about explainable AI, they would just imagine that the information that you get would be trustworthy or real, or would not have hallucinations, which is like the basic. Tell me something that is real and don't send me links that you just invented to researchers that you just invented in research you want to quote. Right? So that's like one thing, but it's like the basic. When I talk to someone, I hope that he will not lie to me. That's like basic. But really explaining what is the essence of reasoning, why did I give you this answer and not another answer? It's much more deep. And I don't think that it's like right now, the way that these LLMs are built, you would not get it. Because it's like they're just predicting the next letter each time, and the next chunk of data is all predictions one after the other. So it doesn't think about it holistically, and therefore cannot really explain it holistically, right?
Yeah, but to set the stage right, human explanations might not always convey exactly what the human decision maker had in mind, and that should be said. And some argue that it is the human brain that's the actual black box. And in machines, we can, push and pull and see what is actually going on inside the black box. But moving past that, LLMs have a problematic tendency to be very, very manipulative and convincing, even more than humans. And that puts a big question mark on whether we want explainability when it comes to these kinds of systems. Are we opening the door to be manipulated? After all, the client of the explanations has not changed. We're painfully human still. But the machines are getting increasingly more sophisticated. They can adapt to the specific user they're engaging with and to create a perfect explanation that is suitable to convince you of whatever the machine wants. But that's one problem. Another problem that I think is emerging is that the research and the work in XAI, on explainable AI, tends to move away from real transparency, which is, as you referred to, I get an explanation that allows me to decide as a human whether the machine is trustworthy or not, okay, into domains that are more interested in how can we use explanations to impact humans, okay? That's a better word than manipulate humans. But there's some kind of move towards using, for example, an explanation. If I'm driving an autonomous car, if I'm sitting in the driver's seat on an autonomous car, we need new words for this technology. And I feel like the car is doing something that it shouldn't, and I get an explanation that convinces me not to take manual control. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It depends, right? But there are some calamities associated with just throwing explanations at people, at humans, without the underlying objectives and fulfilling the purpose of creating actual trustworthiness that we can,
What gives you hope for a future where AI is used ethically?
I'm a firm believer in humanity, believe it or not. So that's more a personal philosophy. And I'm also thinking about, other times in history where technology made such a huge impact, and it had happened. And, we swallow it, and then we just digest it slowly but surely, relating to what you said earlier about law and policy and regulation. So it takes time, but I think we'll be fine. We need to continue to talk about responsible AI, implement responsible AI, and not stifle innovation along the way. It's a challenge, but we can do it.
When I think about the future AI use, I think the usage would be very, very diverse, and for sure some of it will not be for good aims and goals. That's for sure. It's like when we're thinking about cybersecurity, this whole domain is built from attack and defend, attack and defend. This is what they're doing all the time, right? Finding vulnerabilities, and then you have some kind of fixes to that, and it's going to be the same. So some people use it in a way that is not meant to, and then some people will find a way to protect the people that are hurt from that. So in that aspect, it makes sense. I hope that the good ones would be better in the fight, right? But more than that, I think that because we're going to use it in so many ways, and sometimes we don't even know there is an AI element within the machine, right? So we will need to change the way that we see the connection with technology. And I could tell you, when I send something to my kids, let's say something from something that I see on Instagram, and I send them, they already it's fake. It's like, it's not real. It's not real. This is not, they're always hesitant, and they're not trusting what they see. And I guess that the young generation and people coming forward after that would think differently about the information that they get, and they'll be more critical in that sense.
Yeah, I think each generation is more sophisticated than the previous one. That may not be a popular opinion, but that's my opinion. They're getting smarter and more educated. And that's what I said. And I'm trusting humanity. We are very adaptable creatures, and therefore I think we'll be up for this formidable challenge.
We didn't talk about bias at all, almost. Yeah, so maybe we
That's
we
a
should.
bias by you, Adi.
Yeah, I'm biased not to talk about bias.
About bias, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a bit biased not to talk about it, because sometimes it goes to the extreme of saying we need to fix the history in order for it to look the way that we should think about humanity. And maybe in our try, which is a very, I really honor the try of doing things differently in the future. But still, there is a way to think about what does it mean to be human. And we're biased by the fact that we're human. We're biased. And what does it mean to be humans in the future with the fact that we have these machines helping us based on the data that we created, and we're biased, so the data is biased. That's it.
Yeah.
So how do you see it?
Wow. I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I think you're right. We'll have to see how it evolves. And again, as I said, I really trust, the next generation. We see our kids; they're much better than us in every aspect. And we'll just have to see.
Yeah, let's see. What's your advice for entrepreneurs and companies who are afraid about legal risks of AI?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. I think, as I said previously, you have to educate yourself at this point. I mean, it's been on the sidelines, but the train of regulation is heading our way at the speed of light. And just ask questions. Go to seminars. If it's podcasts like yours, everyone should listen to your podcast. And talk to lawyers a little bit, and talk to people from other disciplines, and read and just think about these questions, and be very open to hearing things that might not be the best fit for you, but they're still part of society. Technology should be used for the benefits of society. That's the end goal, and we shouldn't be mixed up about that. That's the purpose where it should go, and we should maintain that during this innovative and amazing time.
Yeah. When we're thinking about legal risks, like what would be the first thing? You're coming into a startup, they already have a product. What would be like the first highlights that you could say, okay, you need to care about privacy, you need to care about the data sources, you need to take care about your security, whatever. What would be these main points that you would go?
You would be surprised of my answer. I would go with human agency. You need to make sure that you're not eliminating human agency too fast. And I think that's
really? I'm very surprised with this answer, I have to say. Because what we're doing with technology is always taking human agency by the way that users do less and the machines do more, right? They help them in a way which is growing all the time when technology is powerful and more capable. And then human agency is going... let's just think about, an engineer working with a co-pilot. He's doing less. He's less of an agent of the creation of what he's doing. And let's say it's like the same for someone who's using a car instead of walking, I guess.
How do you see the relationship between humans and technology? And for me, it's more of a reciprocal kind of process. There's a reciprocal engagement dialectic that goes on between humans and those systems. And both parties are important for that. We need to not try to copy-paste human-to-human interaction, reciprocal interaction, but there are some elements of two, different, let's say, it's not personalities, objects, communicating with one another. That's how I see technology. It's not one above the other, it's one replacing the other. AI systems should be, just like I use the ruler, that's the same thing. I can give the machine more power, but always keep in mind that it's important for me to be the deciding factor, right, to maintain my autonomy. But first of all, what happens if the machine malfunctions? I mean, someone needs to know what to do, right? If we don't know anything what to do, so no one will be there to handle crisis mode. And on top of that, I think that we can learn from machines and machines can learn from us. So it's important for us to maintain our own skills, our own knowledge, our understanding, so we can make better machines.
Right. I'm very surprised with this answer, I have to say, but okay, learning new things each time. What's your number one tip for leaders today?
As I said, it's really time to get yourself acquainted with responsible AI regulation. If you're leading an organization, then learn about it and think how can you implement it in every step of the way in the organization. I think you'll be extremely doing a good service for your organization and for yourself from a risk management, if anything.
Yeah, when we're saying risk management, meaning that you could build something from scratch to something that you invested billions in, and then you found out that it's not really into the regulations, you could not publish it in other in specific parts of the world, or you have
that's
like
one. Think about if you're, putting out some kind of feature or service, and then there's a whole debacle, right? The bad publicity, and you're hurting your reputation of the company because you've made some bad decisions, which if you were more knowledgeable and understanding of responsible AI, you wouldn't have done that. Okay, that can impact share price, for example, right? How investors look at you. So no longer are the days where you could just do whatever you want. The public is more engaged. The policymakers in response are more, stepping into the ring. And there needs to be a better understanding and alignment towards AI regulation, no doubt.
Yeah. I think that what comes to my mind is I think that Amazon had an HR system that was biased against, I think, women, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And they need to shut it down when they found it out. And I'm sure it was not good for Amazon that people know about it.
Yeah, of course. And that's actually a wonderful example because, the algorithm wasn't biased by purpose, right? The people who created it, for sure, were not biased. It's just trained on the data set, which is previous, CVs of Amazon employees, which happen to be mostly men. So, and it might not have even taken deliberate attention towards gender, but the machine can understand gender, these kind of factors, even when it's not presented with them directly. And that's one great example for learning and figuring out what are the questions we need to ask. And again, human agency and human autonomy, you've just proven my point, I think. Okay, so someone needs to look at the situation and say, hey, it doesn't make sense. What's going on?
Yeah, I totally agree. Hofit, it has been a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure we're going to do much more afterwards. And thank you for being with us and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Adi, for having me. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Yeah, and where could people hear more about you and your work and contact you?
Best place for me is on LinkedIn, Hofit Wasserman-Rozen. Look me up. I'll be extremely happy to get your thoughts and to engage and to see what you have to think.
Yeah, I totally recommend you do that. So thank you, Hofit. And to all of you changemakers out there, thank you for joining us. And I invite you to sign up to my new online leaders program, Unlocking the Power of Generative AI, designed to equip leaders with the skills to build successful generative AI products. And I'll see you next week with another innovative, informative talk. See ya.